Hey everyone, so today's video is going to be an explanation on Truestrike. So Truestrike is a mechanic that is unlocked through the mastery system on certain heroes in the game. So Levi here has Truestrike in his ability tree, and this is where you'll find it on other heroes that have this. A lot of people don't know what Truestrike is, and that's completely reasonable because there's nowhere in the game where it says what it does. It does mention it a little bit in this info tab here, where it says chance to deal true strike damage and ignore a percentage of target's defense, but it doesn't, tell you what the damage is calculated on and how much defense is ignored. So hopefully I can explain that a little bit today. So what Truestrike is. Two things to mention here. The first thing is this percentage. So this percentage goes up to 40% if you have both ability masteries unlocked. And notice that it says it's only available in PvP modes. So what Truestrike rate should be considered when building heroes is similar to crit rate increases. That means if you have a character with 60% crit rate on his build and you have 40% Truestrike, you're going to either crit and have this crit damage calculated, or the other 40% of the time that you don't crit, you're going to activate Truestrike. Okay? So that's what the percentage of Truestrike means. Now, I've got a sticky note here to tell you what Truestrike actually does. So Truestrike ignores 80% of the enemy defense if Truestrike is activated. So that's what I was saying, where if you have a 40% chance to activate Truestrike and you build your character at 60% crit rate, 60% of the time, you're going to be dealing critical damage, and the other 40% of the time, if you have both abilities unlocked in your masteries, you'll be activating Truestrike. So Truestrike is not considered as critical damage. So crit damage stat has no interaction. So if you activate Truestrike, this percentage of crit damage is not calculated into the damage. Truestrike is actually based on the attack stat of the hero. And that's what the damage is going to be calculated on. It's going to be the attack versus the 20% of defense that is left on the hero, and then it's going to calculate the damage. I don't have the math behind this. We're going to show it in some arena battles, and I'll show you the difference. So there's a couple really strong benefits to Truestrike, okay? The first one is whenever you're activating Truestrike, you're not considered as doing critical damage, right? And there's a really strong set in the game that a lot of heroes are built around. Like my Nero here, he's in Dragon Scale. And it says takes 30% less damage from critical strikes. So Truestrike ignores this gear set. So that's one positive. The other positive is obviously if you have heroes like Nero that have very high defense, right? And they're tanky heroes, Truestrike ignores 80% of that defense. So in the case of Levi versus Nero, I want Levi to do Truestrike instead of crit because I will do a lot more damage against Nero with a Truestrike hit than with a crit damage hit. Now, one of the downsides of Truestrike is obviously it's RNG. So you have, even if you have 40% Truestrike rate, you still have, the majority of your attacks are going to be critical hits. So you're going to be calculating in this crit damage, which puts you in a bit of a pickle whenever you're building heroes, right? So for me, with Levi here, I built him with really high attack and I didn't prioritize crit damage as much, even though the chances of him critting are going to be higher than activating Truestrike. But, of course, with Levi, he should, now this isn't always the case, but hopefully he will stay on the battlefield long enough and have enough chances to activate that Truestrike that I prioritize the attack over the crit damage. So this was a choice by me to do this. The other positive thing about Truestrike is it is much easier to get stats spread out amongst your characters than prioritizing damage in a bunch of different areas, right? So if you don't have a character with Truestrike, you have to, at least on your damage dealers, have to get 100% crit rate. You have to get as much crit damage as possible. You have to have as much attack as you can get. And then if you're playing like an RTA or something like that, your heroes also need to be fast. And it's just a lot of a lot of stats that you have to try and fit into one character. And there's only so many good pieces of gear out there for you to be able to make your heroes effective from a gear standpoint. So that's definitely one of the benefits of Truestrike, is being able to prioritize other stats while you still have the chance to do good damage if you crit or if you just activate Truestrike and you're calculating on the attack. It's basically that simple, right? It's two different versions of damage. One being ignoring defense, the other one still doing crit damage. The other positive of Truestrike is it allows you, like let's take my Crazed Urzag here, for example. So I was able to put my Crazed Urzag in Avarice gear, and I was able to prioritize really high crit damage while getting his speed high enough while having decent attack. So in this regard, like Crazed Urzag, he's going to do more damage whenever he does crit. But Crazed Urzag gets a lot of attacks before he even gets to go. So the way I prioritized his stats, even with Truestrike, was, okay, well, hopefully Crazed Urzag attacks once or twice each turn. And if that's the case, if he's going to be critting more, I want him to have the chance to just do higher crit damage because he's going to be attacking multiple people with his special ability. And I want crit damage more on that to deal higher damage across different types of people. Because Truestrike is good against tanks, right? When you're ignoring defense. A lot of damage dealers and I guess sniper type of characters, they're really squishy, right? So even if Urzag was to Truestrike against them, he still might do enough damage. But the fact that he's attacking all different types of enemies, I wanted his crit damage still to be higher. So Truestrike is a really fine balance. On top of that, you have other heroes in the game. Ones that I don't have, sadly. But heroes like Holy Armor Virgil, right? So Holy Armor Virgil, he does have Truestrike. I don't have him to show you, but you'll just have to believe me here. His trait says when he's attacked, removes one negative effect and recovers health equal to 35% of his attack. So with Truestrike, this goes twofold. One, you can build higher attack on your Virgil and play for the Truestrike damage while also increasing his healing. So his attack stat can be higher, his crit damage can be a little bit lower, and you can prioritize attack. So it'll increase his healing. Meanwhile, because his crit rate's only 60%, you then have the ability to get more crit damage, more health, even to make him tankier so he doesn't get one shot. So stuff like that. It's really nice. It's a nice, different interaction with your heroes if they have the ability to Truestrike. The other downside of Truestrike also is the fact that it doesn't work in PvE modes. So if you want to use the character in PvE, you have to change their build to equal that 100% crit rate, or they're not going to be very consistent. So anyway, that's how Truestrike works. Those are the pros and the cons in my opinion. So I just want to show you a couple instances of this damage in Arena. So we're going to be playing this person here, and we're just going to bring in a bunch of Truestrike people until I get my point across, and I don't care if I lose. So we'll bring in Levi. We'll bring in Zoltan. Zoltan also has Truestrike. And then who's the other one? Crazed Urzag. And then who else has Truestrike that I have built, I guess? Is it just these three? It might just be these three. And then we'll bring in Light Nick just to have another target for people to hit. Okay. So let's go in here and I'll show you. Or hopefully show you on this one. Okay. So Levi's up first. The first thing that you're going to see is, because Levi is at 60% crit rate, he's either going to deal red damage, which is going to be the crit damage, or yellow damage, orange damage, which is Truestrike damage. So if we attack Nero here, right, we'll see either red or orange, and because he's weak affinity, we may deflect. But let's see what happens here. Okay, so right there, see it says 3,568 Truestrike damage. So that ignored 80% of his defense, and it calculated his attack versus the remaining 20% defense, right? Now, that did only 3,000 damage or something like that. One, because Nero also has an increase of 50% defense and yada, yada, yada. It goes into a bunch of things, but hopefully Levi can survive, and we'll wrap back around and see how much like a critical damage attack will do. Also, Crazed Urzag has the chance of dealing Truestrike damage. So let's see here. Okay, so you see he was doing crit damage here, and then Truestrike on Hakron. And then again, we're going to go with Zoltan, who has Truestrike. So he did Truestrike against Nero as well. And then Crazed Urzag went in again and did some Truestrike to like Urinal and stuff there. So those are the different types of damage. Okay, so there, okay, we got a bunch of things going on here. Okay. Anyway, that's how you tell the difference. And like I said, against really big, beefy heroes that have high defense stat, you really want a Truestrike because it's just going to do more damage against them than critting. If your attack stat is high enough. On the other end, Truestrike is just nice to have, so you don't have to build 100% crit rate. So it has two different types of positive effects going for itself. So that did, like I said, 11,000 damage, so that was pretty impressive. Where here, you see Levi, even though we got a lucky damage there, Levi did less damage with his crit rate, crit damage than with his Truestrike damage. And same thing there, like Crazed Urzag, he was just doing so little damage to Nero and Hakron versus his Truestrike damage. So it can be pretty apparent the damage difference with Truestrike versus crit damage. So we'll finish this one out here. 2,600 crit damage with crit procking. I was going to try and show it to you again, but we're going to kill him here. I'm surprised that team worked, but it did, because I got good Truestrike procs, and I had counterattacks from Zoltan. Everything kind of worked out there. So we'll show it again here. This is another good team to show this off. I will bring in Alicia here real quick, because I need to one-shot this Mary, or we're definitely going to lose. Ooh, I didn't put up defense down. That was a boo-boo on my end. Okay, so we're going to attack Brand here. And then we're going to use Crazy Zerg to get rid of these buffs. Hopefully, yeah, we can Nero a little bit. Okay, so he's unleashed Zoltan with the 7 stacks, which means his ultimate ability is going to hit really hard. But on top of that, another nice thing is if you have Truestrike and you have heroes like Zoltan who do splash damage, if your main target, like Zoltan here, targets one hero and then he does splash damage to the rest, if he True Strikes against Nero here, his splash damage is calculated on the True Strike, which is pretty cool. So let's see what kind of damage this does. So it didn't True Strike, but he did do crit damage there, and it still took Nero out because this ultimate is kind of just nutty. But even here, he already has like defense pierce. So Sultan's such a cool hero. If he True Strikes, I'm pretty sure he ignores like 100% defense. But he doesn't even need it at this point. He might die from Nero though. Yeah, he did. Okay, so he still won. Yeah, that's kind of just a quick video on Truestrike. I hope the explanation makes sense. Seeing it in practice is less important. It just, I wanted to explain what it actually does in game and how to help you build your heroes and prioritize different stats than going after that 100% crit rate, especially if you have someone who has True Strike. You're wasting a lot of opportunity for other stats on your heroes. So I hope this video was informative and helpful for you guys to understand that. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And also a quick shout out to Lord of Vikings here, who showed me the screenshot where the Ace team showed in one of the updates that they had, where it says, True Strike ignores 80% of the target's defense. So it says it right there. It's confirmed by the developer. So shout out to Lord of Vikings. Thanks, buddy. So yeah, that's the video. Thanks, guys.